We all know that vaccine mandates have been declared legal in many circles, but with mandates comes opposition. And today we're going to dig into the issue of vaccine mandates, compliance, and free will, especially in the workplace. Will legal challenges delay the Biden administration's plans? My name is Jeff Cross, and this is Straight Talk. Well, gentlemen, welcome to the program today. Thank you for giving up some of your time. Gavin, let's start with you on this question. Looking back in history, how have people responded when vaccines were mandated? Maybe you have some examples.
Yes, Jeff, it's important that everyone understands how vaccines work. They work in two ways. First, they provide individual protection by building immune memory. Second, there's community protection where they reduce the chance that we come across someone with the disease. So again, there's been many diseases, bacteria and viruses have been developed. Measles, polio is a good example. So let's start with a real world example. The first state law for mandating vaccination was enacted in the state of Massachusetts in 1809. In 1855, Massachusetts became the first state to enact a school vaccination requirement. But then in 1904, the US Supreme Court issued its landmark ruling. It's what's called Jacobson versus Massachusetts, which upheld the right of all states to mandate vaccinations. And this was at the time required that all adults be vaccinated against smallpox. So for my personal opinion or my personal experience, Jeff, I was in the military for 12 years where I was required to be routinely vaccinated against more than 20 diseases such as flu, tetanus, and cholera. And if I just finish by focusing on two diseases, measles, for example, back in the year 2000, the US had eliminated measles through vaccination. But in 2019, just before the COVID-19 pandemic, the US had 1,300 cases of measles. 88% of those cases were in close-knit communities that weren't vaccinated. And again, we saw these worst measles outbreaks in California, New York, and Minnesota. But if we go back to 1952 for polio, when the polio cases in the US peaked at, 58,000 per year, about 1/3 of those died or were left paralyzed. The first polio shots were given in 1954 at a school in McLean, Virginia. And then the general campaign began in 1955. Now, we are now polio free in the US and most of the world due to the polio vaccine.
Good information, Gavin, and thank you for laying the foundation. John, let's have you build on this. We know that there are several lawsuits in play right now challenging the authority of the Biden administration, the government, to mandate these vaccines. Some say that government has overstepped its authority. What do you say to that?
Well, yeah, so we just saw a handful of states. I think there's about 19 states that have said they're going to challenge us. There's a couple of different companies. Just yesterday, a court out of Texas did a stay on the emergency temporary standard for vaccines. Really, I think we all anticipated this was going to happen. We knew there was going to be pushback from some of these states. It's going to take a while to work through the process. But regardless of whether you personally or I personally think this is constitutional or not, I think from an employer standpoint, you really have to move forward as if this is going to be in place starting January 5th. Because what you don't want to be is holding the bag, not having processes in place, not educating your workers about the needs for vaccines, regardless of this mandate or not. So I think the courts are going to run through as they will. We can guess as much as we want, but at the end of the day, employers have to be ready to document, educate, and get, figure out how to deal with vaccinations or testings within their employees.
I've seen reports about, some say that these lawsuits, this litigation, are delay tactics. That if you halt the process, the pandemic will subside somewhat, the effects of it, and then there'll be no need for this and it'll all go away. What do you think, Gavin?
I think it's interesting to look at what this COVID-19 pandemic is still doing in the US right now. In the last 40 days, Jeff, CDC announced recently there was 75,000 deaths. In the last 28 days, there was 40,000 deaths. It's now a vaccine preventable disease, or a disease that will decrease the likelihood of going to hospital or death. So it's really important we look at, again, where this virus is spreading locally. Again, I just wanted to emphasize there's no laws that prohibit employers from requiring a COVID-19 vaccine or any other vaccine, for example. And I think we go back to the schools example, where schools have been required vaccinations for 7 diseases: diphtheria, measles, mumps, pertussis, polio, rubella, and tetanus for many, many years now. And the question I'm getting all the time, Jeff, is the government allowed to issue fines for not getting vaccinated? Yes, they can. And again, this is not the first time they've done this. They did this back in 1904 for smallpox vaccine, for the vaccine then, when we had lots of people dying from smallpox. And then we've done it for other diseases as well.
John, any final thoughts?
I would just piggyback what Gavin's saying. I think, whether it's a delay tactic or not, there is a significant time to, once again, educate your workforce, kind of figure out what these systems look like in place. Even if it gets delayed, there's still opportunity. There's still likelihood that a lot of employers have already mandated vaccines. I think you're going to see more follow suit. You're starting to see actually localities, which we didn't bring up on here because it's a whole nother host of issues, but LA County, for instance, they have their own different vaccine mandates. So I think this is an evolving issue, something we'll probably touch on a number of times between now and the end of the year. But I would say, from an employer, if you own a cleaning company, you need to be ready to put this into play. Whether it comes to fruition or not, it's better to be safer than sorry, because the fines are significant. And you want to make sure that you're not holding the bag if this does come to pass and you do have to have these sort of vaccine mandates.
Well, thank you both for your time today, and ISSA will continue to monitor the situation and keep everyone informed.